Hello and welcome to A Stitch in Time. Today is Wednesday, July 5th, 2017, and this is episode 24. My name is Carol and my Ravelry name is Knits and Pearls. The show notes for this and every episode can be found on the blog at astitchintimepodcast.blogspot.ca, or you can also find them in the episode thread in the Ravelry group, and that can be found by searching A Stitch in Time Podcast under the Groups tab. So it feels like a long time since I podcasted. I was right set to podcast last Thursday, and kind of a family emergency came up, so I had to drop that and go look after the grandkids. And I'll get into that a little bit more later. But I'm happy to be back today. I feel a little rusty, so excuse me if I mumble and stumble. Have a lot to talk about today. I have the Canada Day winner, giveaway winner to announce. I have several finished projects, a couple of works in progress, a number of things that are up and coming, and a little bit of a product review this week. Also, what I'm reading, and then I'll tell you about the last couple of weeks. There's been lots going on. So it's going to be a long one, I think. So grab yourself something to sip on, whether it be hot or cold. It's a beautiful sunny day here, hot and sunny. It's expected to get, I think, up in the high 20s or 30 degrees. So when it's warm, I'm sipping some tea out of my new cup. I needed new cups, like I needed a hole in the head, but couldn't resist these. They match my kitchen really well, and I got 4 of them for like $2. So just some David's breakfast tea from David's Tea. So I'm going to sip that, and then we'll get right to it. So first off, well, a belated Happy Canada Day and Happy 4th of July to my Canadian and American friends out there. I hope you all had a lovely time celebrating your respective countries' birthdays. And on that note, let's announce the winner of the Canada Day giveaway. A little late, but better late than never. So that giveaway included this drawstring project bag that I'd made with maple leaves on the bottom and this Canadian, very Canadian lumberjack plaid on the top with little maple leaves on the liner and the strap, or the drawstrings, and then also some Purdy's chocolates with little Canadiana. We had, I guess, 7 entrants. So I chose a random number between 2 and 8, and the random number generator picked 3. I'll show you a picture of it here so you know I'm honest. And the winner is Mystery Sewer, and that is Sandy from Queensville, Ontario. So a Canadian kind of, it didn't matter to me who won, but I think it's neat that a Canadian will have a little Canadian treat to celebrate Canada Day. So Sandy, congratulations, and please get in touch with me on Ravelry with your full name and mailing address, and I'll get those out to you as soon as I can. So yay, Sandy! So because it's been so long since I've podcasted, I have had a chance to finish up a few things. One thing I did was make more project bags. I had them cut out last time I talked to you. So I made another one like this. That's the same as the one that, or almost the same as the one I had knit for myself, or made for myself. But this one I've got the mousse fabric for the drawstrings and the lining. And I'm going to give this one to my niece. She's a knitter. That's the one that had the baby not too long ago. And then, I've got stuff everywhere. I got to figure out where to put things to get them out of my way. Then I did this one with the mousse fabric, maple leaves on the bottom, the plaid ties, and then the maple leaf liner. And I'm going to keep this one for myself. So I still have one more drawstring project bag cut out with the cupcakes on it. I haven't got around to sewing it yet, but that's going to be my next sewing project, and then I'm going to leap into zippered project bags. I'm sorry, I forgot to write down, there was a viewer that gave me a suggestion for a zippered bag that Kay from the Bakery Bears podcast apparently has put out a tutorial or a pattern for zippered project bags. So I haven't looked at it yet, but I'm definitely going to, and we'll also just check out the web and see what other ones come up. So not sure if I'll get to it by next week's podcast, but that's something that I'm planning to do in the near future. I've heard from some of you that aren't crazy about sewing zippers, and the truth is I'm really not either. But I do like a zippered bag, and I do want to kind of just explore the construction of it. I picked up a few zippers, and I think it seems to me from what I've seen on other podcasts that show sort of partially sewn bags, is I think the zippers just basically go in fairly straight between two pieces of fabric. So I don't think you're dealing with, like on a skirt, you have to deal with the seam at the bottom of the opening for the zipper, etc. So it looks fairly straightforward. I got a new sewing machine last year, so I've never put a zipper in with it before, but I know it does have a zipper foot, and I'm looking forward to testing out that function. And since it's a newer machine, maybe they've come up with an even better way to do the zippers. So definitely kind of looking forward to fiddling with that. So another thing that I have finished are the socks that I was knitting for the Grocery Girls June sock bash, and I called these Remembering Dad socks because my dad really loved mallard, or loved ducks in general, but this yarn is West Yorkshire Spinner's signature 4-ply in the mallard colorway. That's number 862. So that reminded me of him, and then I added the contrasting or complementary cuff, heel, and toe in the same yarn in 632 cinnamon stick. So I'm very happy with how those came out. I knit them for myself, and when I wear them, I'll think about my dad. He passed away 2 years ago, June 3rd, and so that's what inspired me to knit them for the June sock bash. And then as it turned out, the theme of the month was to knit something that reminded you of men in your life in some way, and so it was a perfect combination. So there you go. And my third, I'm just going to reach out a frame here to stick this on top. As I said, I've got so little room here. I've got stuff everywhere. Another project that I finished that I'm extremely happy to be done is my Sugarcane Cardigan by Carol Feller. I'm just going to tell you about the yarn real quick. Get that part out of the way. So Elan A Series DK06. As you can see, it's a merino and silk yarn. And the color is 14 Topaz Blue. And we got the final clue for doing the front band and neck band and shawl collar if you chose to do that. It was just after the last podcast. And so I did do that clue. I chose not to do the shawl collar. I just put a 2-inch neck band on it. And I'm going to insert a picture right here so you can see how it looks on me. So there you go. As you can see, it fits really well. I'm extremely pleased with how this turned out. It's a beautiful color. And when I was in Victoria, not this past weekend, but the weekend before, I had tried to find buttons in our local fabric store and we had no luck, but I knew there was kind of a specialty shop in Victoria that I'd been to before, and went there looking for buttons, and sure enough I found the perfect ones. Let's see if I can get them in the light properly. There we go. As you can see, they're kind of a little bit almost like a mother of pearl type idea with the different colors that come up in it, and they were just the right size. There were only 4 of them, which is what I needed. And the gentleman mentioned that his button supplier was retiring, and he would not be able to get them again ever. So I have the last 4 that he had in stock, and so I'm very pleased. That just seemed to be that meant to be. So I'll hold this up here. So as you can see, it has, as I say, the 4 buttons. I think I'll only probably ever button this one at the top. The buttonhole is made from I-cord. That is, you kind of do, let me find it. See, it's very hidden when it's not being used. So there you can see, you do the buttonholes as you do the I-cord. So they're very discreet. If you don't have it buttoned up, you can hardly see where the buttonholes are. And as I've shown you before, it has this beautiful lace on the side, and then a lace panel running down the back. Garter stitch on the bottom of the sleeve and the bottom of the sweater. And then, as you can see, around the front band. So there, that's the last time you'll see this, at least as a finished or object or project or work in progress. Maybe one day when it's cooler, I will wear it as a what am I wearing, but for now this is going to be put away until cooler days. So yes, I'm really pleased to have been able to stick within the timelines of this knit along. The last time I did a Carol Feller knit along for Lou, and it was a long time after that I actually finished it. So yeah, I'm happy I managed to keep up with the clues as they were released, and pleased to have another sweater under my belt. So that's it for my finished projects. I have a couple of works in progress to share with you. One you're probably tired of seeing. Oh, I forgot to bring the pattern in with me, but it's the Sprites Fen Shawl by Helen Stewart, and it is shawl number 2 in the Shawl Society 2 pattern collection. I'm just kind of digging around for my yarn label. There it is. So I'm knitting it out of Fleece Artist Saldana, which is a lace weight merino wool. And even though the tag says 125 grams, my skein actually weighed 150 grams. So I have tons and tons of this yarn. I've now knit through only half of it, and I've already added on 24 extra rows after the 85% mark of the shawl pattern. So I still, as you can see, have plenty of yarn left. I've been going to find the right side here. There we go. And you've seen this many times before, and this beautiful, it's called Hemlock is the colorway. Let's see if I can, I'm wearing this light dress, and then we've got this, all the light coming in from the window, so it's hard to, it helps show off the lace pattern really well. You can see the feather and fan there. And then some eyelets there, and then this feather and fan section on the bottom. There, now you can see how rich those colors look when it's actually, the yarn's all kind of bunched together and not up against the light. It's that beautiful. It's so rich, such a beautiful, rich colorway. So let's do this. So yes, as you can see, there's the feather and fan. So I've got about that much done. And you know, I'm just going to keep going for a while. I think after, if I were to end it now, I think I would have 8 more rows to knit and then the bind off. But I really want, once I decided that this was not going to be a scarfy kind of shawl, that now I want to make it really big that I can actually wrap up in it on a cold night. And so I'm just going to keep going. Apparently I could add up to about 100 extra rows if I wanted to, or I could make this section 100 rows long. I'm nowhere near that, but I'm just going to keep going, add a few more of the feather and fan repeats since I have lots of yarn, and then that will make it big. It's already now, I figured out, it's bigger than my wingspan. I'm about 5'3", so it's already, I know it's getting to a good width to wrap up in, and then I want to add some extra length too. So yep, I'm going to keep going. The dilemma is, do I keep going on this till I finish it and then start the third shawl in the Shawl Society collection, or do I put it aside and start the third shawl? I'm afraid if I set it aside, I won't pick it up again, so probably I'll keep working on it. But that's a decision for another day. The other project that I'm working on currently, you won't have seen. Bear with me. I am knitting some socks for my brother-in-law, one of my sister's husbands. I always make him socks for his birthday, which is in November, so I'm well ahead of his birthday. But I thought because this yarn is so dark that I would knit on it now while the light is so good. And I needed a travel project for, I finished my Remembering Dad's socks. I did the Kitchener a week ago, Friday morning, the day that we were taking off to go to Victoria for the weekend, and so I needed a car project, so I cast these on, and then we were away last weekend too, so I have had plenty of car knitting time. Yesterday I did the heel flap and picked up for the gusset this morning, so that's where they're at now. So I'm going to bring this in really close. Okay, that gives you an idea. You can see that there's definitely a lot of striping in here, but the striping is very fine, and the yarn itself is so dark that it's a very subtle stripe. So it took me a little bit to try and find the place where both yarns matched. And I kind of went by this. This looks blue on camera, but this is actually kind of a violet purple. And that's been my guide to try and match up the different colors. I'll see if it changes. There, it just looks dark, so I don't think that's much better. But trust me, it's kind of a violet color. And the yarn itself is from Regia or Regia, and however you're going to say it, I guess I have to pick away and stick with it. I've heard both. It's a K-Facet design line collection. And this is color 2903, and I looked it up and it's called Anthracite. So that's currently my plain vanilla socks that I have going for travel and TV, etc., etc. So that's all I'm currently actually actively knitting on at the moment, but I have lots that are about to, a lot of knitting about to take place, or new knitting. So it's the beginning of the month, which means it's a new month for Sock Bash, for the Grocery Girls Sock Bash Knit Along. So the idea is to pick a pattern that's somehow related to the month that you're knitting it for. Now they have extra points this month if you knit with red and white yarn for Canada Day, or red, white, and blue for 4th of July, or oh, I know, they both have their birthdays, I believe, in July, both the Grocery Girls, and so if you have a birthday themed yarn, you can use that. Well, I have none of that. I decided to go with a summer theme, since July is definitely, we're well into summer now. And so I found this pattern called Lazy Day Socks. And so I'm calling my socks the Lazy Hazy Days of Summer Socks. This pattern is by Valerie Hobbs. And hold that close, see if you can see. Features a lace and a leaf motif design. And I think pretty well all of the projects that have been knit on Ravelry have used kind of a variegated yarn. So I had a tough time narrowing down the yarn for this, but I think I've finally decided. And I'm going to keep it in my ice cream project bag because that just seems fitting for summer. And I'm going to break into this skein of Ancient Arts 3-ply fingering sock, and this is in the Vancouver colorway. And since I live close to Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, when I saw it, I figured I should own it. I used to work in Vancouver. I've spent lots of time in Vancouver doing various things, so it was one I wanted to have. And I love all the bright colors, the bright green and blue and yellow. So I sort of think about yellow for the sunshine and green for all the green grass and trees and everything that's in fully in leaf now. And then, of course, the blue for the blue sky and lakes and all those things you think about when you think about summer. So, yes, that's coming up very soon. I might even wind it up, cast it on today, depending on how the rest of the day goes. And the Grocery Girls are also holding another knit along called the Canada Make Along. Yeah, Canada Make Along. And so, as you can imagine, it features Canadian designers, patterns by Canadian designers, Canadian yarn dyers, Canadian yarns that have, you know, suggestions of Canada in their name or something to do with Canada, Canadian types of motifs in the patterns, and you get all sorts of different entries for things. So what I came across was this Sugar Maple Shawl by Angela Roberge. Unfortunately, that's the best picture there is of it on the pattern itself. But you can see it's a lace shawl, triangular shawl. Just takes one skein of like a fingering. And so I've chosen this Canadian yarn, again, Fleece Artist. And this is Kid Dazzle, which as you can see is a merino, nylon, and kid mohair blend. And the color is red maple. So I'll see. Reds are always so hard to capture. It's a little bit deeper than what you're seeing on screen. This looks quite red. And it is red, but it's more of a blue red. Anyway, I thought that would be a very fitting combination. And I'm keeping it in my Maple Leaf Canada Day bag. So again, I plan to cast that on very soon. This knit along runs for July and August, so I have plenty of time to work on that. The third thing I plan to cast on, my husband's co-worker recently, as in we were driving home from the cabin on Monday and got a text with some pictures in it to show that his new grandson had arrived. And I showed this on the podcast a month or so ago when I picked up the pattern. So he and I kind of have a special friendship, and so I would really like to make him something for his grandson. It's his first grandchild. So I'm going to be making this little hoodie. And I have like a whole bag of the yarn that it calls for. I had bought this yarn years ago to make an adult size sweater for myself. And at that time too, I got a little more particular about what kinds of yarns I wanted to use for sweaters. And it's just acrylic. This is an acrylic yarn. And I just decided it wasn't for me. But it's great for babies, children, because that's the kind of stuff that things that parents, you know, make their life easier. You can't tell too much in this skein maybe, but it has subtle striping and will go gradually from, this is a turquoisey kind of aqua color, and then there's like a denim blue. You can see that there. You can see a white gray strand. And it's kind of, if I remember correctly, it's kind of a random change, so I don't think you can match it up exactly, but that's okay. I don't mind working with yarns if you know that they don't match. It's when you try and match them and you have a hard time. Anyway, this is James C. Brett Marble. It is a 100% acrylic DK weight yarn, and this is the imaginative colorway of MT3. And as I say, I've had it for years. I don't know if they make this colorway anymore or not, but I thought it'd be nice for a boy. And I'll probably pick up a little pair of jeans, maybe a little t-shirt to go with it. So I'm going to cast that on. It's done in pieces, I believe. Yeah. I might do the body all in one. I think it's easier. I like to knit in the round. That saves at least 2 seams, and then I can sew on the, mind you, the sleeves, it's just a drop shoulder you pick up along the sleeve, so I don't know. To be determined. Maybe I'll just knit it as it's written. It'll be simple anyway, just basically a couple of rectangles for the front and back, I think, and pretty simple sleeves, and then the hood. So this will be great for, again, TV knitting, maybe some travel knitting. So that's what is coming up. And tomorrow, July 6th, the third pattern for the Shawl Society 2 by Helen Stewart is going to be released. We've received some yarn information and pattern information. We know it's a striped shawl. We know it's 3 colors. And so I've went through my yarn. I've had this combination in mind for a long time, and I'll wait to make my final decision once I see the actual pattern. But I have this hedgehog fiber yarns, and it's in sock yarn, and it's called Sandcastle. This was a exclusive colorway for Simply Sock Yarn Company. And as you can see, it's a cream with pale yellow, little bits of darker yellow, a little bits of orange, this gorgeous turquoise color, a little darker there, speckles. I bought this, I think, a year or 2 ago, maybe. And immediately at the time, I thought it would go really well. Now, see, this, unfortunately, is not capturing the color right. This is this color in various tones. So while it looks much bluer here, it's actually turquoise. See if it changes. No. Isn't that funny how it will pick up the right color here, and yet here it's so off. But it is exactly these tones. And this is also a yarn by Simply Sock Yarn Company. It's their post yarn. And this one's called Patina, which is 75% superwash merino, 15% nylon, and 10% tencel. And this is the Atlantis colorway. There you go. So these, despite how it looks on camera, go together just beautifully. And then I've picked up the yellow. Maybe I better hold it this way. From this yarn, and this is Knit Pick Stroll in the, what's it called? Golden Glow tonal. And that's a merino nylon. These 2 yarns are, feel much more similar in construction and just the thickness, etc. This is feels a little bit thinner, and it's a little bit fuzzier, but I don't think that's going to matter. I don't think there's anything wrong with mixing different textures of yarn in your shawl. So those 3 together, again, think turquoise with that one. I think is going to make a really cool summer, shawl with summer colors in it. Again, I will make my final decision once I see the actual shawl. I believe, now that I think of it, she said it was going to be in a shape that's not typical for her. So I'm trying to picture what that might be, and maybe these aren't the right yarns for that project, but definitely one day these are going to be a 3-color shawl. I just don't know for sure if it's going to be this one. So we'll see. So that's what I've got up and coming, and I could drag out all the projects I haven't been working on. I have about 3 pairs of socks. Very Busy Monkey for their July knit along is going to just for July have sort of a finish up your sock or finish up your projects knit along before she does a mystery knit along starting in August. She always has a shawl and a sock pattern that are related. So I'm tempted to pull out my socks I was knitting on for my brother-in-law for his birthday that I didn't get done, the cozy check socks I think they're called, but I might be pushing it. That's a lot of projects that I have on the go, and while I love the idea of whiling away my days knitting, even that might be a bit ambitious to try and get all those done in time, especially if I actually want to, do other things and keep a clean house, etc., etc. So we'll see. And don't forget reading. I want to read. I've actually really enjoyed this year. I made a real effort or a real point of reading real books again as opposed to just listening to audiobooks. And I've enjoyed it so much, and almost every night before bed even, most of the time that's when I read, and I'll just read a chapter or two. Depends how long I can stand to keep my eyes open, and it's just been a really nice addition to my life. It's something I didn't realize how much I'd missed till I started doing it again. And for those regular podcast viewers, I am knitting my way through my Agatha Christie collection in order of publication. I own all of her books and short stories in one form or another. Sometimes there's a difference between what a UK published book will include as far as short stories, but then if I don't own that one, I will own, in some way or form, I own all of the short stories through various collections. So while maybe it was published at a certain time in the UK and later in the US, and I might own the US version, I still have it. So I can't remember what number I'm on, but recently I finished The Boomerang Clue, which one of the viewers, and again, sorry, I really should have made note of some of the names before I podcasted. The Boomerang Clue is also called Why Didn't They Ask Evans, which actually I think is a much better title because it's the last words that this gentleman utters before he dies after falling off a cliff. And it's not till right at the end of the book that you kind of get a sense of why they named it The Boomerang Clue, which I guess makes some sense, but I like the original. I think it's the original title was Why Don't They Ask Evans, I think. So anyway, I finished that one. This is one of the novels that she's written that doesn't involve any of her regular characters, and introduced us to some new main characters, and I quite enjoyed this one actually quite a bit. Kept me going. I really wanted to see how it ended. So that I finished I think about a week ago, and then I've been working on this one. Now, while I was doing show notes, I discovered that this was originally published in the UK as Parker Pine Investigates. And as you can see, this version, US version, is Mr. Parker Pine Detective. And it is a series of little short stories involving Mr. Parker Pine and his various clients that come to him with little problems and the way that he solves them, I guess. And what I thought was really interesting is in this book there are a couple of characters that appear in other Agatha Christie books related to Hercule Poirot. One is Miss Lemon, which is, of course, his secretary, and she's working for Mr. Parker Pine in one of the stories that's in this book. And also Mrs. Oliver, Ariadne Oliver, the famous novelist. She also makes an appearance in this book. So I thought that was interesting how Agatha Christie kind of stuck a couple of her characters into this book that has nothing to do with Hercule Poirot at all, although it does take place in London. Oh yeah, you can see I've got Iceland bookmark. That is a gift from my sister. As you know, if you've been watching, my mom and my sister went to Iceland not too long ago, so I've been using that. I'm thinking of her. So as I mentioned, I wanted to do a really brief product review for you today. I meant to do this last podcast when I was talking about sewing project bags, but then I forgot. One of the greatest things I've ever found for a sewing tool is this little doohickey here. It's about 2 feet long, has an eyelet in one end, and a heavy, it's flexible here, but then it goes into a heavy handle that doesn't flex. But this is designed for inserting elastic or ribbons or drawstrings through a casing. And if you've ever struggled with a big safety pin and you get in there, and if you ever have like a seam that's been pressed open and the safety pin gets caught in behind the flap of fabric from that pressed open seam, or if you come up against a seam that's been pressed sideways and it's on the wrong side and it ends up jamming in that little pocket, this is for you. I'll grab one of my project bags here, just give you a sense of how easy it is to thread a drawstring or elastic through a casing. Now, of course, this one already has the drawstring in, but you would just take your end of your drawstring or your elastic or whatever, and you just insert it through this little eyelet. And I pull it out, a fair bit, so that it's got some overlap. And then you just insert it through the casing, and because it's so stiff and so long, look, it just goes through like that easily. And then you just, what I would do is I would bring my drawstring out, unhook it from this, and then I would just pull this back out again. Makes threading things through a casing super, super duper easy. Now I've had this for a little while, probably a year or two. I just got it in my local chain sewing store, a fabric store. Gives you a good idea of what that eyelet looks like. I went online looking and I found one, either it's the same or very similar, called the Heirloom Thread All Flexible Threader. So, and I put a link to it. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. But if you are ever, sewing and having to insert things through casings and finding that a real nuisance, lifesaver right there. I don't remember how much it cost. It can't be that much. It's a bit of plastic, but well worth the money and the sanity. So that's my little tip for you. Just flip my notes open. It's been a busy couple of weeks, and I'll tell you what's been going on. First, on a high note, as I mentioned, not this past weekend, the weekend before, I went over to Victoria with my husband, Cameron, to celebrate his brother's 60th birthday. So we stayed with his brother and his wife, and we were only there Friday night, Saturday night, came home Sunday. They had a really nice party on Saturday afternoon into the evening. They have a lovely backyard they've worked on the last few years. They've built a nice deck with a couple of different levels and pergolas, and they've got a natural gas outdoor, like a fire pit idea. And we sat out there Friday night, and it was lovely, and then that's where the party mostly took place on Saturday. The weather was beautiful, very warm, but the shaded backyard kept it quite comfortable outside, and it's a little bit buggy later in the evening, but it was just a really nice weekend, nice chance to visit with them and to meet some of their friends and to see some other family. So a very nice trip. As I mentioned, we went downtown shopping Saturday morning, and I found those buttons for my sugarcane cardigan, so I was thrilled to find those. And then we went over to Beehive Wool Shop, which is my favorite. Actually, the button and needlework boutique where I bought the buttons, they carry some yarn too. And I did look what they had, but nothing really grabbed me. And I had a discount card for the Beehive because they have a customer or loyalty card that you get stamped as you spend so much. And I had earned, I think it's a 15% discount on my next purchase. So I thought it would be a great time to use it. And I actually went in specifically looking for yarn for the So Faded sweater that I'd earlier attempted earlier this year. And while I found several different 1-2 combinations I liked, I couldn't find a third yarn that really went with it. And there's nothing else that grabbed me, if you can believe it, and I left empty-handed. I'm not sure if I've ever left that shop empty-handed before, but it just didn't seem, you know, I wasn't going to buy something just for the sake of buying something. So I'll hang on to that, and next time we go over, I will definitely check out the shop again, and I'm sure I'll find something. And there might be other projects on my radar by then anyway, and so I'll find something. I'll have no trouble eventually spending it. I just did spend it this time, or use it this time. So then, yeah, just came back on the Sunday and had a fairly, you know, regular week. I had there's a group of women friends that I get together with once a month, and we had our final get-together of the year. We kind of run September/October to May/June, depending. Sometimes we miss a month. So it's some of the women are former co-workers of mine. That's how we started. We got together, this group, and then we each invited someone along. So one of my sisters is in it. Excuse me, as well as some former work colleagues. So this one in particular had just moved into a new place, and so they've done a bunch of renovations. So she was, I think, anxious to show it off, and it's really nice. So it was kind of neat to see her new place. And we normally have several of us bring an appetizer, and then the hostess provides dessert and various things to drink. But this time she just said, just come, I'm going to provide food. So she had made this dinner for us. And her main course was something called chicken cordon bleu casserole. And it was pasta with chicken and ham and Swiss cheese. And it was delicious. I got the recipe from her. She said she found it on Pinterest, and it is not a diet meal by any chance. The sauce is made up of cream cheese and heavy cream, whipping cream, I guess, and Swiss cheese, but oh, is it ever good. So I actually, the recipe that she gave me actually had bacon in it too, but I don't think she put bacon in hers. And she said it didn't reheat very well. She and her husband found it kind of greasy reheated. But so what I did is I did the recipe. I added more pasta than it called for, and a little bit more chicken and ham and bacon, and I divided it into 3 casserole dishes, and I froze 2, and we had one last night for dinner, and it was very good. We only ate about it happened to be a divided casserole dish. So I ate half of my side, and my husband ate a little over half of his side, along with a vegetable, and that was plenty because it's quite rich. So we're going to finish off the rest tonight for dinner with a salad, and that should do us fine. So it was kind of a pain to make because I had to cook all the bacon up and chicken, and there's a few different steps, but it feels good to get 3 meals or 3 dishes out of it. I think if I were to make it again, I would look into ways to make that sauce maybe a little less rich and calorie laden, because that's a lot of fat. I might use like a Cremo, like a light cream. I'm not sure if Cremo is a brand we have here in Canada, so I'm not sure what you would call it. In the States, maybe light cream, coffee cream, and maybe the light cream cheese, and see how that would stack up. Anyway, it was really good. So that was a good get-together that she had, and then we had ball. Oh, I know, I missed ball that night because I went to that instead, and then they played, actually, and then they won Monday night, and they had a really good game and a high-scoring game, and they won that game. And then Wednesday, we won again, which was crazy. So yeah, good week for ball. And then our week kind of took a downturn. I was all set to podcast last Thursday. I was just in the process of writing up my show notes, and I was going to start recording, and got a call from my daughter, and had to leave right away to go look after the grandkids. My son-in-law's mother had a major stroke and was not expected to live very long. And she had been in the hospital and was on her way to recovery. They had been in the night before actually visiting her, and she was up doing her rehab exercises, and her next step was to be released from this hospital and then go to a neighboring one in another town to do rehab, and was up earlier that morning, was fine, and then the next time the nurses looked in on her, she was unresponsive, and because of another complication, she was expected to pass away very soon after. As it is, she's still hanging in there. My son-in-law, I watched the kids yesterday while he went in to see his mom, and I guess she does react to some things, so they know that she knows at least to some extent what's happening. So it's a sad time. She's in palliative care. The family's trying to spend as much time with her as they can, and it is just a day-to-day thing. I actually was surprised that I didn't have the kids today. I'd expected him to call, but I know yesterday he was looking after his nephew while his sister went in to see their mom, so perhaps they've swapped babysitting today. He was on summer holidays, were planned for this week anyway, and then my daughter's subbing in for a coworker who's on holidays, so she's at work this week and he's home with the kids, but he knows that I'll take them whenever that he needs to go in and see her. So yeah, kind of a shock for everyone. She's had definitely some health issues, and as my son-in-law said, we knew she wouldn't live a really long life, but they didn't expect this soon. She's only late 50s, early 60s. Sadly, my son-in-law lost his father to cancer just about 3.5 years ago, so it's a tough thing for someone that young. I know how devastating it was for me to lose my dad, and I'm he'd lived a long, full life, and I've at the point where I've raised a family, have grandkids, so it wasn't like we were young, and so I just can only imagine what he's going through. So yeah, I'm kind of on consider myself a bit on call this week, and I won't plan anything too concrete because when he calls, I'll go. I expected to hear from him this morning, and when I didn't, I thought, okay, I might as well take this opportunity to podcast because I don't know if I'll get a chance tomorrow. So that's why I'm here. Now, on a happier note, we did go away last weekend. It had already been planned, and my daughter said they had lots of help with friends if they needed babysitting and such. So I felt I could go away with a somewhat clear conscience. I felt honestly really, really torn between staying home and going, but I knew my mom needed some help. So every Canada Day, her seniors group does a fundraiser, a yard pardon me, so froggy, a yard sale, bake sale, raffle, and it's often hard. There's not a big group to start with, and it can be hard to get volunteers, and especially for things like packing and unpacking the white elephant or rummage sale. I don't know what different words are used for that. Basically, odds and ends that you sell. And so I'd already let her know that my Cam and I would go up and help her for that. So we did do that on Saturday. So their senior center is right close to the park. She lives in a little village, actually, not even a town. And so we could hear what was going on down in the park because the loudspeaker was set up, and they had different things for the kids, bouncy castle and face painting, some Canada trivia that they were putting out, of course singing "O Canada," cutting. They had a big cake. They always have free hot dogs. So we could hear what was going on. We just weren't participating in it ourselves. Excuse me for a moment. My throat is really froggy. And that tea is really cold. Yuck. I've been talking a while, I guess. We had gone up Friday evening and got there in time for dinner, and one of my cousins was on his way through, so he stayed over Friday night. So it was just my mom and my husband Cameron and he and I in camp. So we had dinner together and then played cards and had a really good visit. He's only a couple of years younger than I am, and we used to hang out at the cabin quite a bit when we were growing up. So it was good to see him and have a chance to have a real visit. So yeah, then we did, so Canada Day, went in and worked on the yard sale and had a nice dinner back at the cabin, stayed there that night too. And the weather was beautiful, hot and sunny. And then Sunday, my husband and I tackled the grass. The grass has not been cut since May long weekend. Like for us, that's Victoria Day weekend, so it's the weekend before Memorial Day for those of you who are in the States. So that's quite a while. And of course that's prime growing season, but there hasn't been anyone up there staying, so no one's had a chance to cut the grass. And our property itself is 40 acres, but I'm not sure exactly. I would say we probably, the area that our cabins are situated on and the surrounding grounds, I'm guessing are maybe up to 10 acres. So it's a lot of area to cover. So my husband was on the ride-on mower and I was on the push mower, because there are some places for sure you need to do with push mower. There's some gullies, kind of, well, they're not gullies. There's no water running through them. They're just, rolling hills that you kind of have to get down there yourself, and along the fence line and around the cabins and stuff, around the buildings. So yeah, it was a full day of work. I think we started just after 9 and we broke for lunch and didn't get finished till about 4 o'clock, I think. So full day's work, but felt very satisfying. And there was a nice breeze blowing. It was sunny, but it was beautiful breeze blowing, which really made the difference. I never felt overheated, and I just kept drinking lots of water. Mosquito, I'm one big mosquito bite. Not very attractive, sorry, but they love me. I must taste really good, and unfortunately I react to bites. So I've had a few days where the itching's been crazy, and Benadryl cream has definitely been my friend. That's helped, takes the itch out for a little while, and just about at the stage where they've calmed down. But yeah, it's a bad year. It was a high water year, and so as the waters receded, the bugs have come out. I did have lots of sunscreen, so I didn't get all burnt or anything, but I kind of hoped if it was breezy and if I was moving that they wouldn't get me too much, because I really don't like bug spray, but obviously my plan failed. The ground up there, some areas is quite fine and sandy, dusty, and with our son's grade, as we were mowing, the dust was kicking up, and we came in for lunch, and my husband and I were both just absolutely filthy, covered in dust. I've never seen, well, he from a little ways away looked like he had a big dark beard because it was catching, I guess, on his whiskers too. We were a mess, but shower took care of that. And like I said, it felt really good to get that job done. And the next time there's a big group up there is in the August long weekend, at the beginning of August. My niece is getting married, and so it may not even need cutting again till then. It's now we're into the hotter weather, it won't grow as fast. So we all kind of take turns. Oh, and then we came home Monday, and because it was a long weekend, and then got a call from our older son, and just a really impromptu invitation to dinner. He was cooking casserole that he likes, and he's like, do you want to come for supper? So we had just gotten in from grocery shopping and contemplating what to have ourselves, so that was really nice. And it's nice to have a chance to visit with the various kids one-on-one. And he's fairly recently, a few months ago, moved into a basement suite with my nephew, and it's not often we get invitations from the boys to actually come to their houses for a meal or any kind of occasion. So it was a nice chance to go and actually spend some time at his place, and dinner was good and nice to visit. So that ended off our weekend on a really positive note. As I mentioned yesterday, I had let my son-in-law know that if he wanted me to watch the kids while he went to see his mom, I was definitely up for that. So I did have the most of the day yesterday, and we're out, but they're good, and it is nice to see them. I really feel for them. They're going to lose both grandparents from my son-in-law's side of the family. I think that's really sad. They won't grow up. Well, definitely my younger granddaughter won't remember her grandmother. Pardon me. And I know I lost one of my grandfathers when I was about my granddaughter's age, and I don't remember him at all. I just know from pictures. So kind of a sad. So that's definitely overriding this last week. My son-in-law's mom has been on my mind quite a bit, and I wish her I hope it's not too long till she kind of lets herself go. I think it's tough on everyone, but she's resting very comfortably and peacefully, and it's just tragic. Just a tragic thing, and makes you realize, just how much you have to appreciate waking up every morning and make the most of your day, and be kind to the people around you. Stay in touch with family, friends, because that's that type of thing makes you realize just how unpredictable life can be, and we really do have to savor each day. So with that in mind, take care, everyone. Have a good week. I plan to podcast again next week, so hopefully that will happen. But if not, I'll put a note up on the Ravelry group board, and also on the show notes if for some reason podcast is delayed again. But I'm hoping that's not the case. So anyway, take care wherever you are, and whatever season you're enjoying, winter or summer. We're definitely getting our hot temperatures now, so I imagine the southern hemisphere is getting there colder, starting to get pretty cold. So stay warm or stay cool wherever you might be, and enjoy your crafting. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon.